Come on in, team. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Secretary. I think I saw Senator Belina out there. See you out there. Anthony, come on up. Hey, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm happy to be joined by the Speaker of the House, Shap Smith, by our Senate Majority Leader, Bill Baruth, Senator John Campbell, the President of the Senate, sends his regrets. He's recovering from a back challenge. He thinks if he lies flat on his back long enough, he'll avoid surgery, and we're hoping that he's right. So our thoughts are with him, but he wishes to be here. But Senator Baruth's here to carry the Senate water. Representative Tony Klein, who chairs the Energy Committee in the House. Senator Anthony Cunningham from Washington County. Our Attorney General, Bill Sorrell. Thank you for joining us. Happy to be here. My Secretary of Jobs is here, Lawrence Miller, and Commissioner of Labor, Andy Noonan. Thanks for joining us. As you know, Entergy Louisiana this morning made the announcement that they would be shuttering the Vermont Yankee plant next October of 2014. This is the right decision for Vermont, and it's the right decision for Vermont's clean energy future. I've had the pleasure of speaking this morning with Leo Denal, the CEO of Entergy Louisiana, and Bill Moll, who's their president of Entergy Nuclear. And we've had a very constructive conversation. Really, the spirit of the call was to emphasize my commitment and our commitment as a state to ensuring that we work together with Entergy and with everybody involved to find a great future for the hard-working employees of Entergy Louisiana in Vernon. As you know, those employees have done an extraordinary job running the plant. They're dedicated, they're smart, they're capable, and we're going to partner with them to find a great jobs future. I should also tell you that I've spoken with the neighboring governors who are also impacted by the job losses that will transpire as we move forward to a nuclear-free future in Vermont. I've spoken with Governor Hassan of New Hampshire. I've spoken with Governor Patrick of Massachusetts. And we have all pledged to work together as a team with Entergy to ensure that those who are losing their jobs have a great economic future right here in our region. As you know, Entergy employs 650 employees, roughly. It's important to know that 40% of those employees live in the state of Vermont. That's about 260 employees, and the remainder live mostly in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. As you know, I was born and raised my family and ran my business in Windham County. And my first concern as governor is going to be to ensure that we view this as a base closing in other parts of the country, but as an opportunity to grow jobs and economic opportunities for those that are being impacted. My heart goes out to the hardworking employees and their families, and my commitment as governor is to work together with our regional governors, with our commissioners of labor, to get our rapid response teams into Entergy immediately, to work together with them on the future. I want to thank Entergy Louisiana for their willingness to work together with our rapid deployment teams. They've in fact invited them to get to the plant as quickly as possible and work together to assure the best jobs future that we can. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I can tell you that we're going to be working very hard to ensure that we return the plant to a green field so that we can use it for other energy and economic development opportunities to grow jobs in Windham County.
So what can the state do to accelerate the decommissioning process, which under the current regs could take 60 years?
Well, here's my commitment, is to work together, and Governor Hassan and Governor Patrick agree with this, is to work together with our congressional delegation with Entergy to ensure that the period between closure and returning it to a green field is as short as possible so that we can use it for other economic development opportunities. As you know, the transmission lines are a huge asset. The property is a huge asset. So that should be our goal. Now, we all know when you shutter a nuclear plant, and this, not forget that this plant is being shuttered for economic reasons. As you know, natural gas prices has drastically changed the landscape for aging nuclear plants, not just in Vermont, but across the country. I believe this is the fourth or fifth to be announced to be closing this year when they didn't anticipate closing them just a few years ago. But we're going to work together to get the shortest time period possible to return that to a green field and have it used for other economic development opportunities. And I've just expressed that wish and hope to Leo Denault and Bill Moore.
Did he express any sort of time frame, or did you ask him about what's your understanding about that gap between end of next year and beginning of decommissioning?
You know, we had a very positive conversation, and you know me, I'm pretty candid. I said, listen, we all know we've disagreed in the past on the future of Vermont Yankee and when it should be shuttered. But the past is the past. We're now dealing with the future. And he pledged to work together as a team to get the best outcome that we possibly can to achieve the goals of employment opportunities in Windham County.
But you have a decommissioning fund that's valued at $580-something million, and that's not nearly enough. So what do you think is likely to happen?
You know, as it's no secret that I've expressed concerns in the past about the lack of funds in the decommissioning fund. We'll be working together with Entergy, with the NRC, with our congressional delegation, and with the delegations from New Hampshire and Massachusetts to try to get the best outcome that we can as quickly as we can.
But legally speaking, I mean, they have the right to stay open to prolong the decommissioning process for 6 decades. How can the state force that if there's not enough money in the decommissioning fund?
All I can tell you is that I've expressed very clearly what my hope is to Entergy. We've agreed that it's all in our best interest to let the past be the past and work together for a constructive outcome, and I believe that we can do that. So I'm optimistic that we can work together not only with Entergy, but the NRC and our congressional delegation to, let's not forget what the promise originally was. When the plant was originally licensed, the agreement was that, the understanding was that it would be run for its life, 40 years, and decommissioned and returned to a green field. And that's very much been my goal right from the beginning.
What leverage does the state have to influence the decommissioning process?
Well, you know, I'm not going to get too into the weeds on that because I don't think it's fruitful. I think at this point, my job as governor is to work together with Entergy, to work together with the neighboring governors, with our congressional delegation, to see to it that the hardworking employees in Windham County and in New Hampshire and Massachusetts that currently work at the plant have the best outcome possible for a bright economic future right here in Vermont. And 2, that we ensure, for Windham County's sake and Vermont's sake, that the site itself becomes productive for jobs and economic development as quickly as humanly possible. Now, we all know that nuclear plants have to cool off for 4, 5, 6 years, but after that, we should begin the decommissioning process and move forward.
Did you get any advanced warning beyond prior to this morning about this closure?
We got a call from Entergy shortly before they notified the public that they'd made this decision for economic reasons.
And did Mr. Denault give you any indication of how many people could be employed going forward in the shutdown process?
We didn't get into those details. Let's remember that obviously you don't just shut the switch off and walk away from a nuclear power plant. If you look at the main decommissioning as an example, there's a slow attrition of employees. Obviously, the question is how many of the current employees there who are extraordinarily qualified for the same work that decommissioning involves, and that's going to be an ongoing conversation.
What happens to the current legal battle that's going on? Where does that stand?
Well, you know, I happen to have our Vermont's attorney with us, and maybe I'll turn that one over to him.
Bill. Thank you, Governor. Which case are you talking about? There are several pending. Now,
Maybe summarize
All right. Well, just today we're arguing an appeal taken by Entergy at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in New York on a tax that was imposed on the plant. Obviously, the Public Service Board proceeding on a certificate of public good. I believe all the evidence is in, and just some further written arguments from counsel are due. Looking for a decision from the Public Service Board. No certainty, but probably later this year, early next year, whether what Entergy has decided to do today or has announced today that it intends to do, whether that changes Entergy's approach to the certificate of public good proceeding. We'll see. That's in their hands, and we'll see that fairly quickly, I would think. And then, of course, we have the issue of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals decision in the first Entergy lawsuit against us, and we have elected not to seek so-called en banc review by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, but we have, I forget, 75 days or so, 90 days from the decision to decide whether to seek review by the U.S. Supreme Court. Today's developments we will take into account when we're talking internally in my office, when I'm meeting with the governor, the Speaker of the House, Senate leadership, and others to talk about whether we should seek review by the U.S. Supreme Court. Today's developments are a factor that we'll take into account, but certainly won't be. It's not like it's all over because they've announced an intention to close.
Governor, your thoughts on...
I just want to add one quick thing to what Bill just said, what the Attorney General Sorrell just said, which is one of the pieces of the conversation I had with Leo Denal. Let's remember, Leo Denal is a new CEO, relatively new CEO at Entergy, new leadership. He's made the right decision. And we both expressed an interest in working more closely together and less through attorneys, and that's certainly my goal.
Your thoughts on...
So this is the attorney unemployment.
That's good news.
What has ended this plant's life is the economics, not the litigation, not the state legislation, not the work by the legislature. What are your thoughts on that? That what the market is driving this decision. It wasn't a vote by the Vermont Senate. So what do you think about that?
I see no benefit in dissecting exactly what brought Entergy to this conclusion today. What I can tell you is that this is not a big surprise to me, and I don't think it's a big surprise to many that have been following the economics of aging nuclear power plants in America. So this is the right decision. Entergy's made the right decision. I thank them for that. We're going to work together with them to get the best possible outcome for the employees who have dedicated their lives to running a plant very effectively.
3 years ago, could we have said, we'll just let this thing run its course? We don't have to risk losing a case at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals over states' power to shut down nuclear plants.
If I had those powers, I wouldn't be governor, I'd be God.
Is just going back to Safe Store for a second, just on a most fundamental level, are you can you live with Safe Store?
I've made very clear, whenever asked about Safe Store, that my concern is jobs, and jobs in Windham County. And the sooner that we can return that to a green field, so that we can use the extraordinary resources there, the transmission, to help power our green energy future, the better off for Vermont in terms of jobs. Second piece is, let's not forget that whatever the decommissioning costs, whether it's $600 million or $1 billion, that's a lot of jobs. And that takes time, to take place over time. So the sooner that we decommission, the better it is for jobs and economic activity in Windham County.
Do you have faith that Entergy will come through on the decommissioning? And if so, what's your time frame? When do you want to see it close?
What I really want to do is use this opportunity to build a better relationship with Entergy. And I've offered to the CEO that face-to-face meetings are better than telephone conversations. He agreed with me. We're going to work together on the common challenge that we have. Not just me. Don't forget, 40% of the jobs are in Vermont. 60% of them are in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. So we have a regional challenge to work together to ensure that we have good economic opportunities for the hard-working folks at the plant, number one, and number two, that we're using this as a regional economic development tool, this site, to grow jobs for the future.
Governor Shumlin, back in 2011, you told us in an interview you thought that this could result in even more jobs if Vermont Yankee were to decommission. Do you still believe that now, and if so, why?
I hope I didn't say exactly that. What I've always said is that the decommissioning process itself is a jobs creator that, if placed in safe store for a long period of time, we don't want to miss out on.
The average wage at Yankee is it still about 100,000?
I don't know the answer. It's around 90,000.
90?
Yes, so these are very good paying jobs. But I just want to remind us all in the jobs piece, we sometimes lose sight of this, that when the hardworking employees at Entergy took the jobs there, it's not like taking a job at IBM or some other employer in Vermont. You go in knowing that the agreement was that it would run till 2012, and anything after that, there was a disagreement between the state and the owner. So I don't want to diminish the impact in any way. I just want to say that the eventual job loss of Entergy Louisiana site in Vernon shouldn't be a huge surprise to anybody. It's difficult, it's hard, but it's not like it wasn't part of the plan right from the beginning when the plan was built.
What is the role of the legislature going to be, in your view,
Well,
or should it be over the next?
I'm going to turn it over to the speaker who's here, but the answer to that is work together with us to help ensure that the folks who are working hard at the plant have jobs, and two, that we grow jobs in Windham County, because this is like a plant closure. It's a big, we've always known there's going to be a huge impact in Windham County. We want to minimize that impact. That's why we've been doing things like ensuring that when we rebuild the Brooks House in downtown Brattleboro, we're creating a regional campus there with CCV, with the state colleges, with Vermont Tech, to help grow, retrain workers, and have the ability to retrain workers. So this is not a new challenge, and I think the legislature's done a good job of helping us get ready for this challenge. Mr. Speaker, you want to add something to that?
Peter, we have already talked to Representative Hebert this morning in Vernon to let him know that anything that the legislature can do to support not only the community of Vernon, but the broader community of Windham County, we will do. I'm going to talk to the Representative Klein as well as Representative Bozzo from the Economic Development Committee to determine whether it be appropriate for us to have hearings this fall to see whether there's, down in Windham County, to see whether there's additional support that we can provide. I think we will also have a role in continuing to monitor with the administration, the congressional delegation, and the NRC, the decommissioning fund. It's been an issue of great concern to the legislature, and we will continue to make sure that we play the role that we need to force the decommissioning fund to be fully funded, because it's vital to the economic vitality of Windham County, and it's vital to the long-term future of Windham County.
Do you interpret the state as having authority to force Entergy to fully fund that decommissioning fund?
I'm not qualified to provide a legal opinion on that. We will take whatever measure that we are legally authorized to do to push the issue, and we will work with others to also make sure that the fund is full and that we move forward as quickly as possible to decommission the plant and put that site into economic use.
And are there things that you can do to influence the decommissioning timeframe legislatively?
I don't have an answer to that right at the moment, but I can tell you that we will be looking towards anything that we can do to move forward decommissioning as quickly as possible.
How much is in the fund now, and what do you mean by full funding? How much would that be?
Currently, there's about $560, $580 million in the fund, and the estimates on what it would take to decommission vary greatly, so I'm not going to throw you a number.
Could you say the range?
I think that generally it's considered somewhere between 800 and $1 billion has been the numbers that I've seen thrown around. I've got my commissioner here.
I think the first answer, we're definitely evaluating that, and it depends on when it starts and how much is growing in the fund. But, you know, it is short, and how much short, we'll have to see over time.
And you are?
Chris Rocchia.
Commissioner of Public. I didn't introduce Chris. I don't know how I did that, but come on.
All right. Question for...
I was doing better just before that.
The Speaker, in order to bolster this fund, would the legislature consider, as it has in the past, greenfield legislation that would require additional monies to be put into that fund?
Well, I think we'll be evaluating all of our options. We'll be working closely with the congressional delegation, with the administration, the NRC, to move forward using any option to make sure that we have sufficient funds in the decommissioning fund to make sure that that is put into greenfield as quickly as possible so it can be used for economic activity.
Does this accelerate the need to notify the folks in Texas that we need their low-level nuclear waste site?
I think they've known in Texas that we're coming.
So on balance, we've had this plan for 41 years. You didn't know this day was coming. Put this into some historical context. Is this on balance good news for Windham County, uncertain news for Windham County, and your personal thoughts about the historic nature of the dam?
You know, this is good news for Vermont, and Entergy has made the right decision in choosing to shutter this old and aging plant. And as you know, we have been going to celebrate tomorrow the anniversary of Irene. The way that we've made energy choices in this country is going to provide huge challenges for us going forward. The sooner that we can get off of oil and move to renewables, the better off our planet will be. And Vermont is leading the way in growing green, clean, renewable power. And I think this gives Vermont the opportunity to do so. Let's not forget, one of the best kept secrets in Vermont is that we currently do not buy any electricity from Vermont Yankee. I repeat, Vermonters do not use any of the juice being produced by Vermont Yankee. So our power companies have been smart enough to look to the future, to understand that VY isn't likely to be a big part of our future. And we're going to move forward with a green, clean energy future that will grow jobs and economic opportunities for Vermont and a cleaner planet for our kids and our grandkids.
During the decommission process, will Vermont Yankee continue to pay the same amount in taxes as it has now, or is that eventually going to wane?
I'm not going to get too much into the tax policy, except to say, obviously, when Vermont Yankee closes down, they will not continue to pay the generating tax that they've been paying because they won't be generating power anymore. Thank you so much.